Well, welcome to today's episode of our Technology and Discipleship. This is going to be a really special episode because we have actually a guest today. And the way we found this guest is we had I guess it was spring, Scott, in May, because it was right after General Conference. So right at the beginning of May into late June, and then even some class participants still working on projects in July. One of our participants in our advanced AI workshop, the first time we did it, they shared their testimony with us saying the prompting and persona template that you get taught and then gave us in the advanced course, she said every year I would put aside a week to work on some different projects, and utilizing what I learned in the advanced AI course that week ended up taking me, how long was it, Scott?
I think it was like a day and a half.
A day and a half or something. And
maybe 2 days total, yeah.
Yeah, really absolutely shortening that amount of time. And so Scott had the great idea, oh my goodness, we should have this person on the podcast. And we're doing a podcast. We should start having guests. So Scott, tell us a little bit about, we just finished the podcast, the recording with her. So we're doing the introduction now. So before we transition the podcast into the interview, tell us a little bit about your, what you gleaned from it, what you thought of, and some information about her.
So yes, Dr. Felicia LaBoy, she is the pastor at First UMC in Elgin, Illinois. And when I saw her project, I was over the moon. I was like, this almost can't be real. This is so incredible what she had done, what she had put together. And I could tell from her interactions in the Slack that she was getting a lot out of the course. And so when we first talked about having a guest, I thought, this is natural. She's crushing it. And what was so exciting to me was getting to talk to her. Man, she's crushing it more than I thought. I was like, wow, just a preview of things to come. I mean, the story she tells of the prayer at her state house, I was almost in tears. I mean, I just appreciate the fact, to give a bit of an intro, how she uses it now as a thought partner, and how helpful that can be for pastors, especially those that are in solo appointments and you feel like you're doing it all. You're doing all the work. You have so many administrative tasks. When your calling is to be in the community, your calling is to be in doing mentorship or discipleship work. And she is a great example of how it is freeing her time to do that work. So it was such a joy to talk with her, and I appreciate her taking time to be with us and share this.
Well, with that being said, without further ado, let's hop right into the interview, and this sounds great. I'm excited for it.
Dr. Felicia LaBoy, will you introduce yourself to us? Tell us where you're in ministry and more about yourself.
Sure. I'm the lead pastor and life coach at First United Methodist Church in Elgin, Illinois. I like to say I pastor the best church this side of heaven. I've been in ministry. I started my 26th year in July, my 26th year of ministry. We are about 40 miles outside from downtown Chicago. We're in the sixth largest city in Illinois. And our community, very diverse, almost half Hispanic. And then probably another 10 to 15% made up of Asian, Pan-Asian community, and African-American. I've spent most of my time in urban ministry teaching. I am currently an affiliate faculty person with Garrett Evangelical and their D-Men program. I teach the hermeneutics class on, how do you look at race, gender, sexual orientation, class, age, ability, all of that. And I don't know, I'm married. We have 3 children, they're not boys, they're men. 2 boys and 1 girl. And then we have 11 grandchildren, 10 boys and 1 girl.
Well, I'm going to start, if that's okay, with the first question. And so one of our hopes for using AI tools is that they help alleviate ministry pain points and allow more time for real ministry. So what pain points have you feel like have been addressed for you, at least to this point, in terms of how you've been able to utilize AI tools?
Well, a big one is that I'm not a lectionary preacher. And I'm not a lectionary preacher because sometimes a lectionary doesn't speak to my context.
Okay.
And the things I learned in the class about setting up that ministry prompt and treating this whole idea that I could treat that person as an assistant And for me I'm a solo pastor. I have a great liturgist and I have a great church, but I'm a solo pastor in my space, right? What it's done for me is I'll have ideas about kind of what I want to do for ministry and have no idea at all about how to lay that out, right? I really wanted a Lenten series about how Lent is a time for launch. There's not much written about that. And not to be funny, our church is trying to be more diverse in a community. It's very diverse. And so I also wanted to use some diverse writers, speakers, or whatever. So I couldn't find what I wanted. So I was like, okay, here's my idea. Here's what I want to say. Help me think through, the scriptures, the passage, the way this could work. And then back and forth with ChatGPT. Rather than me trying to figure that out on my own or whatever, that was back in half a day. Our church is putting together a stewardship campaign along with a capital campaign to celebrate the 100 years our building's been in existence,
okay,
but also to have to be really clear that we want to focus with the folks that join us online, because we have all of these ministry partners that are not traditional ministry partners in our space, and we're getting a lot of press and play for that, right? So we have for the 4 years that I've been here, and even before that, we're partnered with the city, and that means police, fire, the city mayor, another organization to house unhoused people during the winter, right? We're the emergency shelter. People are interested in seeing that, right? We partnered with the county for this program for young adults that helps them get GEDs and then teaches them construction skills. And then while they're learning the skills, they're getting certifications and working on a Habitat for Humanity houses. Both of those things bring income to our church. They expose our church to people who've never come and to people who will never find a way to enter into our building, right? They're just intimidated by that, or they've been told that the church isn't for them. And one of the things that people may not know is that we are LGBT and open, right? We've been very honest about that. So we need ways for people to plug in. So anyway, we wanted to really leverage this idea on legacy, but legacy as a reason to be set up for the future, and looking at the faithfulness of the people who left behind our endowment, right? But also speaking to the future. I'm not that smart. So I kind of used your prompt. I put in all the stuff. And I think in about a half a day, I had all of my sermons laid out for that stewardship and capital campaign. In a half a day, I had laid out from September 15th to like November, the middle of November. That was done in a half a day. I'm not that smart. And then every week, I also release sort of a riff on my sermon for the week. It's a quirky way to get people to think about this in a different way, right? That usually takes me a couple weeks to figure out, because I have to figure out the scriptures, the theme, I have to find the music, and I try to mix the music up. That takes me forever, because I'm trying to say, let me look at this website and find, is this gospel music over here? Or maybe there's a praise and worship song. Is there a country and western song that fits? Is there a rock song that fits? Right? That takes me at least a week to do that. And that's a week to do that for three weeks of stuff, right? 3 or 4 weeks of stuff. I had all that laid out in ChatGPT in a day.
Yes.
What would normally take me seriously 3 or 4 weeks worth of work, I finished in 2 to 3 days.
Wow. So lots of questions. That's an amazing story. And I'm so thankful to hear that. You keep saying you're not smart. You have a doctor before your name. So it's going to be hard for that to really get across. You are smart. I could see someone saying, great that you did that, but how is God in that? I mean, just because it got completed, what about the Holy Spirit and how that should lead you and guide you? Can you talk about how, yes, you got it done more quickly, but how do you feel like God was still in the process?
Well, one of the biggest things I think was the form you guys made about the prompts.
The template, the prompt template,
Yeah,
Blake gets credit for that.
Because, one, I start off, I'm a United Methodist pastor, blah, 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 right? The other piece is that, I'm not using ChatGPT to crank out and create all this for me, right? I'm still going through the same process I go through to determine what my sermon series are, what the needs of the church are. People are still praying through all of that, right? What we're saying is, we know that this is the theme we want to follow. So I felt very much that what was needed, for example, for Lent was this idea that Lent is not just a period to give up coffee or Cokes or chocolate and the stockpile of that so that you can go back to doing whatever you were doing, but really convicted that a time of Lent was a time for launch. I couldn't find that anywhere. And I felt like I had a word from God on that, right? So I'm like, okay, God, I hear what you're saying. Not quite sure how this series could go. And then got some ideas from ChatGPT. And then I'm going back and forth, right? The same way I would be if I was in a pastoral group talking to my colleagues about, I got this idea for a sermon series. Help me think through this, right? For the stewardship and capital campaign, same thing. We're doing that one board model, which means that we start off with the spiritual formation and then leadership formation, right? It has changed our leadership team, and I can see where everybody's grown, including me. Everybody's grown in our spirituality, right? So we all prayed for what that theme was. I looked at everybody's stuff I looked at Anna Hamilton with the enough stuff. I looked at the generosity things. So what I did with that template, what allowed me to do is I said, I am a United Methodist pastor. Here is what we're trying to do. Here is what I believe to be the critical scripture for what it is that we're doing, which comes from Haggai, which I don't know if it's part of the lectionary or not. I want to make sure that we put in something for All Saints Sunday. And so it didn't absolve me from my pastoral responsibilities. What it did was it helped me to do the research to get that stuff done and do that most efficiently. And when it came back with stuff, I remember one of the times it came back with, and I thought, I hear what you're saying. I don't like that. And really kind of prayed through and changed up with some of the suggestions. So if you look even at my notes, I'm like, okay, this is what ChatGPT came out with. I don't like that. I'm going to preach this. I guess it's been like Data from Star Trek. It's been a colleague for me. I don't know if I could say that or not, but it's been a colleague for me.
Yeah. A thought partner.
Yeah, partner.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And that's one of the ways we've encouraged people to use it is not just a generation tool, as in generating things, but as a thought partner to help me wrestle with this, right? Because it has this vast amount of data and vast amount of ways at looking at things.
Yeah, the other big thing is, I do these motivational moments from the Bible, right?
Yeah, say more.
So what some of my folks have told me, maybe people who are not Bible scholars or whatever, have told me that sometimes they go to that more than listening to a sermon on Sunday. So it's a 5 to 7 minute thing. Yeah, I know, I'm hurt. Right? But it's a 5 to 7 minute riff on something, right? So like I did, one time I did a thing on Big Kids Don't Cry, right? To let people know it was okay to cry, which was what my sermon was on. So now I'm looking for a song to go with that because I do a 7 minute riff. And then to help my church break out of just listening to organ music, because we have an organ that's worth several $1 million and people are locked into that. And I'm trying to help them understand that the young folks around us are not, right? I'm always trying to figure out what song could go with this, right? As a way to introduce new music to our church. Well, me using ChatGPT also introduced some new music to me. Some new hymns, some new worship music, some gospel music, all of that. So it expanded the repertoire for music. And when I was doing this on my own, what that did is that helped prepare my church to let us have a praise band that played on Sunday morning and kind of so that the organ didn't play all the time. What I feel like all these other genres are doing is also kind of seeding it's plowing the field so that as we attract different kinds of people and bring in different cultures and all of that, folks are hearing a whole series of different kinds of gospel, of praise and worship, or what does Sunday morning sound like? That's very different, maybe from their culture and their context. So in that way, it's expanding us as well. And there were plenty of songs that I had no idea that even existed that went extremely well with what we were doing.
So I want you to tell a story that you told us before because it's such a good story. I can't let it go untold. And that was the prayer you gave before. Was it a state house?
Yes.
Tell that story because I love that story.
I pastor a purple church, right? Which means that I have red and blue folks. And so sometimes on Sunday mornings, what I've been known to say is, take out your phone and Google scripture and this. But anyway, I was invited because of all the community stuff our church is doing. I was invited by my state rep to come and give the prayer of invocation for the Illinois State House of Representatives. Oh. And I was very mindful that I came from a purple place. And I wanted to, even though the Illinois State House is very much Democratic, I wanted to be sensitive to this middle space, right? Mm-hmm. And wanted to call for unity and all that. So I had ideas about what I wanted, and I kind of knew what I wanted to say, and I had a limited time. But there were specific issues that I wanted to address. I wanted to remind people that they were there for the people. I wanted to remind folks that as a way to build bridges, both sides of the house in Illinois State House love Abraham Lincoln. I needed the right quote to add, I wanted something to add there that would fit there. So I kind of wrote out what I thought for a prayer and dropped it in kind of used the prompt you gave me, dropped it in ChatGPT and said, please refine this. And then it came back and I was like, nope. I want to add this. Can you help me with this Abraham Lincoln quote? Nope, I don't like what you said. Back and forth and back and forth. And the blessing was on that day was, as I mentioned to you guys first, the way that that you did a good job, it's not so much that the people who have to be nice say you did a good job, but the ushers and the police that are standing guard, they think that those were the right words. As I prepared to walk out, our state rep, who is a very spiritual person, was so excited. She was like, oh my God, that was exactly what needed to be said.
Amen.
And the police that was there and the ushers were like, gosh, that's what we needed. You know what I mean? Kind of started out and said, here are the objectives that I had. This is the best I can write. Let me drop this in and see what you say. And then I was like, oh yeah, I got to put it in Abraham Lincoln. Oh yeah, I want to make sure I don't offend either side. Mm-hmm. How do I rephrase that? I want to walk this middle place. It's a bridge building place and all of that to set a standard that says, that the work of Christians should be about making bridges. And so don't count us out for this.
Amen. They have called to be peacemakers, and that's not easy work. I really appreciated how it was back and forth, but you didn't rely on, I got an output, I'm going to use it, but it was I don't like this, change this, add this. That's such a great example of what we advocate. It doesn't do the work for you, right, Blake? I'm stealing your line. You say it, Blake.
And like I said, the prompt template has been so incredibly helpful for me because, especially when you say in the role of, right? I need you to be in the role of a United Methodist pastor, right? Or worship leader.
Yep.
Please keep in mind these things.
Context. Yep.
And so really, I almost think of ChatGPT as like my intern that I'm talking to.
Exactly.
Right? So that's been incredibly beneficial in terms of the time it saves me so that I can spend time on building more partnerships in the community.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. So yeah, keep going in terms of you save time. What did you do with that XX time?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we created a community development corporation. The benefit of a community development corporation really that what it allows churches to do is to utilize federal, state, local funding and private grants to do the work of outreach, right? Because I'm a firm believer you can't always go to the people for the money. We could have as many campaigns as we want, but you can't go to the people for the money. And so I am you talk about my background, I am a trained asset-based community and economic development person, right? And so the big part of that is to build relationships. That means that, I'm at the YWCA luncheon. I was honored at that luncheon, but I'm also building relationships and talking to people. I'm like, do you this person that sits on the city council, do you know the woman who's over our Chamber of Commerce in the city? She's a member of our church, but I'm making sure I'm at that meeting, connecting with business people, right? To make this whole thing work for our unhoused friends. That's a lot of collaboration between the police, the fire, the city management office, the people, the one collective that runs that in our building. So all of those relationships have to be factored and filtered in, right? Then as people come there, we don't want them to just think of themselves as they're our guests or they're people who are renting space from us. We want those folks to feel like they're part of the house, right? Well, and they are. These are our friends. And so for all of the administrative stuff I can get out of, it does two things. One is that it really frees up my time to build those relationships, which in turn have had direct financial benefit back to us. Or people will call and say, hey, can you partner with us on this? We just got a thing from the county sheriff that said, would you do a Faith in Blue thing? I need to be able to be at a meeting for 2 hours for that. I can't do that if I've got to spend 3 weeks trying to figure out, or at least a week trying to figure out what's the stewardship campaign going to be for the capital campaign. I mean, that's, I can't even put into words what that does. And it's not only saving me time, it's saving my folks time. So my minister of music now has 3 months worth of stuff laid out, right? Sermon, scripture, sermon text, all of that. That means that they can start planning early. My administrator, she's running ahead of schedule. So not only is this not only saving my time, everybody that's around me, it's giving them perspective. We're all kind of on the same page. I always say the Holy Spirit has the right to change that sermon. The ability to build those relationships and to be with my folks inside the church and kind of talking through with them, it gives us for people inside the church, here is where I'm going in terms of Sunday worship. So now, that went to our board, that went to all the ministry teams, that went to the worship team. That means as a church, we're all kind of focused on that same, this is the way we're going. And then I'm saying to them, what say you? How's the Holy Spirit speaking to you before we get to this point? So you can't, like I said, you can't buy back that time.
So I heard a lot of things there. One, I heard you're more able to be in community. So community engagement, networking, building relationships, and then getting everyone on the same wavelength and being on I like that collaboration too. All right. So yeah, I've given this to you. So what say you? Let's feedback about that. That's great. So what advice would you give to clergy and ministry leaders on using AI?
Well, I can just tell you up front, and I think it's one thing our denomination doesn't talk a lot about. We don't talk a lot about the bivocational pastors that are part of what we do, like, licensed local pastors. And we also don't talk about, I think, people who are racial ethnic clergy, maybe in urban areas, or rural clergy folks who, I know that the book of discipline says you're not supposed to have another job or do this, that, and the other. But the truth of the matter is most folks who are making what minimum salary doesn't always work. For a lot of folks, our spouses, if you have one, is helping to cover that. I know with us, I used to teach the churches that I had back in on the west side, south side of Chicago. I used to always say, let me go to the Bank of LaBoy, which meant I was going to my husband to get a loan, which is more like a gift to get stuff done, right? And so I don't know a pastor, in particular our most vulnerable pastors, right, who, even if they wanted to go get additional training, go back to school, or any of that stuff, right, who could not use some tools that would help them breathe a little easier, to help them be more creative. Everybody does not preach the lectionary. Now, maybe that's blasphemous in our denomination, but there's some good stuff that's in the Bible that's not in the lectionary. And to me, for folks that are like that, people who might have a 2-point charge, 3-point charge, or whatever it is now, licensed local pastor, bivocational pastor, people that are, maybe have not even a side hustle, a desire, a call to write a book, they want to do some training, or they have in their heart something else to do that helps further the kingdom. To me, I would say just go ahead and try it, right? That's what I did. I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm getting clobbered, between trying to address those folks who now saw that our church is trying to answer and respond and be a good neighbor, trying to figure out how I'm going to do that and have meetings during the day, and then come home when my brain is fried and like, okay, what's the sermon text for this week? Oh, shoot, I forgot. I got to plan out 3 months. I got to plan 2 months in advance so my folks can walk with me. Can I get up at 4 a.m. maybe and figure that out? Can I, you know what I mean? And so for me, that's what this tool has done for me. It's as a clergy person who feels called to, do these things, who also, teaches a class at Garrett, who helps mentor some other clergy, frees me up from this. It's lifted a burden so I have time to also pursue those other things that are very important to me, especially as one who is, I'm probably 7 years away from retirement. And there's some books in me. I think it's very important to mentor other pastors. I need that time too to help fill my tank. That's what this tool's done for me. It's allowed me to be really creative the way I want to be in ministry. It's freed up my time, and it's given me the space to do some things that fill my tank, that help me fulfill my calling in a greater way. Now, that might sound cheesy, but that's what it's done.
Dr. Felicia LaBoy, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the extraordinary ministry you have going on. That's first and foremost. And number two, taking time out of your busy day to be with us and share the experiences that you've had. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to give God all the glory and praise because, a couple years ago, we weren't sure that we would make it. We just decided to go for broke. And, as that passage says, this is the Lord's doing. And it's been amazing in our sight because we weren't sure. And God sent, I consider you all to be that same gift. I saw the class, thought, maybe we could, maybe I should do that. And like I said, it's been an incredible gift. So I pray blessings on your ministry. Pray that God would expand, what you have to do. Thank you both too.
Well, I hope you got as much out of that interview as we did. It was such a joy, and I appreciate, again, her taking her time to do this. So tell us what stood out to you in what she said. Was there anything that maybe you had a hard time with or challenged you? Drop in the comments below what you got out of that. Email us, however you want to contact us, to let us know what was helpful for you. Again, maybe something that challenged you a bit. What about you? Is there someone you want to hear from, perhaps, that we could interview? Do you want to volunteer yourself in terms of what you've learned about AI? We're in the middle of doing our AI advanced course, looking forward to more stories like this, and would encourage you the next time we do a course. Would love to have you. And I'm sure you got excited. Of course you got excited from listening to Dr. LaBoy. And I hope your imagination is spinning in terms of ways that you can use this to save time, improve quality, improve efficiency, and do the work of ministry.
Well, thank you so much. We will see you in 2 weeks for our next episode. And stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. Leave us a comment. We will see you in the next one.
Peace.